Gojo962 here, and today I'm going to go over the entire history of the Five Nights at Freddy's film, from the scripts that were scrapped, leaked set photos, and of course all the delays. Now keep in mind this will span over the course of many years, so if I miss out on anything, do let me know in the comments. Now let's not delay this any further. Let's get into the crazy history of the biggest gaming film ever made. On August 8th of 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's was released. It was a very simple point-and-click game, but it blew up and went viral. The game sets you in a pizzeria where you have to survive for 5 nights as animatronics come to kill you. Now this is around the time I got into FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's, and it quickly became one of my favorite franchises. Although there was no film news this year, it's the year that started everything, and where things were getting exciting. In 2015, we got the release of FNAF 3, which debuted the most iconic character in the franchise. So it was a good time for the series, but it got even better in April. 8 months after the release of the first game, it was announced that there would be a FNAF film. It was announced that Warner Bros. Pictures got the rights to make a FNAF film. At the time, the film was described as an insane, terrifying, and weirdly adorable movie. Gil Kenan was signed on to direct the film, and trust me, this isn't the only director we'll see.
That was easier than I thought it would be.
In January, Scott Cawthon revealed that the movie was having difficulties behind the scenes. Seeing that up to this point it has been 2 years since the film was first announced, there were no new updates until now, and plenty of people were mad, or thought the movie was not going to be made. Scott stated that he wanted to make sure the right movie was made, and seeing what is coming up, I believe him. It was also announced that at this time, Scott wanted to make a trilogy of films, with each movie focusing on the first 3 games. This is a perfect idea, seeing as Scott almost ended the series at the 3rd game, and we'll get back to this later, because a FNAF film trilogy will be heard from again. Unfortunately though, it was announced that director Gil Kenan left the project, and instead Chris Columbus would direct. Scott also posted a tease on Twitter showing off the director's chair with Freddy's name on it, and behind the name was a very important studio in the story. Up to this point, Warner Bros. Pictures was to release the film, but this treat and information released later confirmed now Blumhouse is going to make and release the film instead. This is because Blumhouse allowed Scott to have creative control, and let him have more control over the project, things that Warner Bros. Wasn't allowing. Jason Blum, CEO of Blumhouse, is also going to be an important person in the story now, so keep him in mind. In August, Scott announced the film's first draft was completed, and Jason said how they planned to release the film in 2020, which obviously never happened. Later in the year though, Scott announced the film's script was scrapped. In 2019, the film's script was finished. And on top of that, Jason stated that the film was moving rapidly. In November, Scott stated that the film would start filming in 2021. Scott posted something interesting as well, and it is easily one of my favorite parts of the film's history. A look at multiple scrapped screenplays. For those who don't know, a screenplay is the script of a movie. So let's get into what we could have gotten. The F screenplay. Basic setup. Group of teenage troublemakers break into Freddy's. Chaos ensues. Problems. Although a pretty basic setup, there were a lot of odd choices here, which only got weirder as the story continued. The story ended with our protagonist in a secret underground animatronic factory that was designing robots for the government. Verdict? What the fuck? Strayed way too far from the source material. Tossed. The Plusies Take Manhattan screenplay. Basic setup? Plusies Take Manhattan. Problem? Plusies Take Manhattan. Verdict? Burned with fire. The Random Charlie screenplay. Basic setup. Charlie and friends sneak into Freddy's after hours to retrieve a lost toy. Problems? Although sharing names of familiar characters from the series, these characters had nothing to do with the gaming book counterparts. So while featuring familiar elements of the games, it seemed too loosely based on the game and lost a lot of its impact because of it. Verdict? Felt like a random bag of FNAF elements with no real stakes. Meh. The Silver Eyes screenplays. Kira and I both worked on 3 versions of Silver Eyes screenplay over the course of about a year, trying to find the right approach to the story from the first book. Problems? These were the first attempts I made myself to write a screenplay after realizing it was going to be difficult to find someone else who understood the lore well enough to do it. Unfortunately, it also meant these screenplays suffered greatly from my inexperience at writing. Even Kira, with her writing expertise, couldn't save them. Verdict? Although these had some good elements, I ultimately decided to focus on making a screenplay from the games and not from the books. The Pawn Shop screenplay. Basic setup. A kid who watches after a pawn shop finds trouble when an animatronic is brought in. It turns out Freddy's has been robbed, and the animatronics are taken to different locations for sale. The other animatronics come to retrieve the one at the pawn shop, and the kids and his friends get roped into adventure. Problems? A creative approach, but felt a little too much like A Boy and His Animatronic. Too much after-school adventure, not enough horror. Verdict? Seemed like a good idea at the time. The Cassidy screenplay. Basic setup. Diving deep, the screenplay packed in a lot of lore following the story of Cassidy. Problems? Spanning multiple time periods, following multiple characters, and featuring lore from multiple games. This was pretty saturated to a fault. It may have been satisfying to the most hardcore fans, but it would have left the majority of people confused and lost. Hey wait, maybe this was the most accurate screenplay. Verdict? Ultimately more of a visual encyclopedia than a movie. This just wasn't satisfying even to me. Out. The Misfit Kid screenplay. Basic setup. Single mom brings her kid to a new town. Kid finds Freddy's. Hilarity ensues. Problems? One of the problems in creating a modern day story with an old Freddy's setting is finding a way to connect the protagonists to the restaurant, finding a reason for them to be there, and finding a reason for them to stay. The problem here was that the reason for this kid to go to Freddy's and have misadventures was too contrived and too forced. Verdict? Not a bad setup, but it just didn't work. If I don't care about the characters, then there's a good chance no one else will either. Pass. This was going to be the screenplay for a while, because it didn't have any serious flaws. I ultimately just decided it wasn't good enough though. The Ghost Tracker screenplay. Basic setup. A group of amateur ghost trackers sneak into the abandoned Freddy's. Problems? Although a very common sense setup for this sort of movie, the problem again arose about how to give these characters a connection to Freddy's itself. What ended up happening was too much of the story went to their own backstories and their own hardships, and it took the spotlight away from the story of Freddy's. Verdict? A stronger connection between protagonists and Freddy's was needed. Lesson learned. The Insane screenplay. Basic setup. Another Ghost Tracker variation, this one involved the Funtime animatronics, underground ball pit tunnels, and a marionette out for revenge. Problems. As some screenplays ventured too far into an adventure, this one went too far into action. Verdict? Too all over the place with too many characters doing too many things. The Mike screenplay. Basic setup. This makes sense. Why didn't I think of this before? Problems? Actually, this is a good mix. It has the best pieces from all the previous screenplays, not really any problems here, all the right characters, all the right motivations, all the right stakes. Verdict? Yeah, we're going with this one. It's fun, it's scary, and it has a great central story. This year brought only bad news, seeing as a Mike screenplay was scrapped, and a new script had to be made. So filming never began this year, and led to the film being delayed even further. Jason put out a tweet though about how he doesn't want to write a story that will disappoint Scott. So with this being a very tough year, how could they make things better and move forward? Well, the next year turned out to be a dream come true. When in an interview, Jason stated that the film was dangerously close. Later in the year, a behind-the-scenes image showing off a worker sculpting the suit for Freddy Fazbear was posted. This suit looks to be a direct copy of the Help Wanted model, or at least it took elements from it. This is huge, considering up to this point we have gotten scrapped screenplays, delays, and talks about what could have been, but now with this photo, it was clear that the film was finally taking shape. Jason would confirm that the film would start production in 2023, and that Jim Henson's Creature Shop was responsible for making the animatronics, and on top of that, a new director was on board. Emma Tammy. Geek Vibe Nations would post some character descriptions for a few of the main characters, but these were unreliable. Finally, in December, Docker would announce multiple cast members of the film as part of a St. Jude's charity livestream. Mary Student Madison as an unknown villain, Piper Rubio as Abby Schmidt, Josh Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt, and Matthew Lillard as William Afton. At the start of 2023, in January, Geek Vibe Nations returned some more info. This being actress Elizabeth Lyle would be playing the character of Vanessa. After this, the film would start filming just like Jason said it would. There were plenty of leaks, photos, videos, and more, easily an exciting time for a fan of FNAF. Actor Matthew Lillard went on an interview and seemed to confirm that there would be 3 films.
I just got cast in a movie called Five Nights at Freddy's.
Which congratulations.
Yeah, it's very fun. It's a 3-picture deal with Universal and Blumhouse.
Now, does this guarantee 3 films? No. I think he signed a contract that states if the film is a success and more are greenlit, then Matthew Lillard would have to come back and return as his character. The film would start filming February 1st and finish April 3rd. Then 2 days later, Jason would tweet out the release date for the film, October 27th. Unfortunately though, a month later, a trailer would leak, showing off the film. Now up to this point we got small leaks, but this was the full trailer. The leaker would eventually come out and talk about this, and Scott would even respond. Scott saw all this info when he was out with his wife and kids, but even though it was devastating news, he found joy in it. He didn't find joy in the fact that the film crew's hard work was leaked. He found joy in the many huge members of the community refused to talk about it, and the community refused to share it as well. To keep up with the good spirit, later in the month Jason would show off the very first posters of the film, and an official teaser trailer, with the full trailer releasing June 27th, and the second releasing August 30th. Five Nights at Freddy's has come a long way. From being what was supposed to be the final game from a struggling indie developer, to one of the biggest horror franchises in gaming. I've been a fan since the first game came out, and I've loved this wild ride, from the first game being some fad to years later now close to seeing the film based on the same game. Just like Godzilla vs. Kong, this is a big event and holds a lot of history in it. The fact that soon enough I'll walk into theaters and see William Afton put on the spring Bonnie suit is exciting. This film is looking to be a massive success, and if it isn't that, then at least it'll be a massive event for the fans. I would like to thank you all for watching, and thank you to the cast and crew for making this film come true. And thank you to Scott Cawthon for everything. This amazing community, vast amazing world he created, wouldn't be the same without you. Gojira962, signing off.